Okay, so these are your answers. I would recommend, if I were you, going through this again for homework. You should, on these review questions, be getting 100%, especially because it will be the second time you'll be doing it. So, second part that we're looking at today, cardiovascular system part 2. Heart, blood and vessels. These are our 3 pillars with the cardiovascular system. Your heart is your pump, your blood is your fluid, your vessels is your container, your vasculature. So these are the 3. If any of these 3 go down, we're in trouble. You have on the cardiovascular system on Moodle, it's under A&P, cardiovascular system folder, and I've put part 1 and part 2. This is part 2. Part 1 has got the screenshot from VTCT of your logbook of what is required from you. So you already went through this last week. This is what you needed to know for this unit. The function of the cardiovascular system. And we're going to go through this today. The location of blood vessels, that's what we went through last week. So if I were you and you're not confident, you should know where the jugular vein is, the mesenteric artery, the carotid artery. They're all those terms you need to know then. So I would go back and do some revision. Location, structure and function of blood vessels, all these parts. We went through the electrical conduction last week, the cardiac cycle we should know. So today we're going into blood specifically. So any questions on last week? No? Nice one. So this is what we're covering today. So your blood is made up of plasma, red blood cells, which we know are called what? What's redness during massage?
Everything are erythrocytes.
Erythrocytes. Leukocytes are your white blood cells, and your thrombocytes are your platelets. So blood is made up of those 3 blood cell types and plasma. Plasma is more like the fluid, so it's the loose connective tissue. So before we're going to go into a bit more detail with that, but before we do so, what do you think the function of blood is?
Transportation.
Transportation, yes. What is blood transporting?
Nutrients.
And oxygen and hormones. Yeah, hormones relate to what system? What's the function of insulin?
Lower.
Huh?
Blood sugar.
Blood sugar. What's the antagonist?
Oh, it was you. What was you when we did this thing? I was insulin, and what were you? What's you?
That's regulating calcium levels.
No, I was like
Insulin and glucagon.
insulin.
What's the hormone that lowers calcium levels? And the antagonist is the PTH. Where's that secreted from? What process happens with glycolysis? Is that done by glucagon or insulin? Why? What does it mean?
Because glucagon has something to do with calcium toning.
What does glycolysis mean?
Glycolysis means like I can't think of the opposite.
Breakdown.
Yeah,
Glyco is sugar, lysis means breakdown. It's the breakdown of sugar. So glucagon breaks down the sugar and raises your blood sugar level. It breaks down that storage. It breaks down the cake that we had at break time when we're starving 3 o'clock. So insulin uses what process? Not glycolysis. Glycogenesis. Yes. So back to blood. 4 functions. Transportation. I'm going to give you a clue. Transportation.
See the cells or not?
No, it says
Copulatory.
no.
Is it clotting?
Clotting.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else? No. And what else? Heat regulation. Have you got this book in front of you, Kim? Smashing
No,
it.
but I've been doing some homework. I've been forward, like,
Oh,
I need
amazing.
to catch up quite a bit. Yeah, so I've been doing a bit of.
If I were you, I'd remember a little rhyme. My rhyme is whole bit, no offence if you like daytime or evening television. Colby City program is trash.
Oh,
Terrific.
I've watched it for years.
Depending on your love for Holby City. Holby City program is trash.
It is
trash.
But you know what? I forget about everything when I watch it. Crap occasionally.
This is how I always remember it. Heat regulation, clotting, protection, transportation. There are going to be questions in your assessment that are going to ask you what the function of blood is. And it's going to give you 4 options. A will be heat regulation, hormones, clotting and protection. Is it one of them? No, because otherwise it would be HPT. So you know it's not that. Answer B is going to be heat regulation, clotting, protection, cells. No, it's not that. It's not HCPC. You should write down, if you see this question, you know you've got your sheet of paper, write this little rhyme down and write HCPT, write your 4 functions. When you see A, B, C, D, you're going to go through every one and you're going to tick off, yes, I'm 100% sure they're the 4 functions. So this is a screenshot from the VTCT website. Transportation, defence, clotting, heat regulation. That I've put, this is from VTCT, they say defence. Yeah, on the exam they say protection. So I've just put, so just be aware that they might put defensive. But defence, protection, you'd be able to work that out. If it had transportation, defence, clotting or heat regulation, or it had transportation, cells, clotting and heat regulation, you'd be able to work that out, right? So transportation, the blood transports essential substances to and from all the cells in the body. These include hormones, electrolytes, nutrients, waste products and gases. Defence, the blood contains specialised cells and chemicals that defend the body against toxins and pathogens. Clotting, although usually a liquid, blood has the ability to clot, which prevents excessive blood loss in the blood if the blood vessel is damaged. The clot also prevents harmful microorganisms from entering the wound. And then heat temperature regulator, blood absorbs heat from warm areas of the body and releases heat in cool areas. This is your anagram here to remember. With regards to heat regulation, so you know, has anyone been, we talked about this, been skiing? I can't remember who said yes. Or when you're absolutely freezing and your hands start getting numb. So what happens is your blood vessel, your blood, when you're really cold, needs to protect itself. Your body needs to protect itself. So it's going to send vasoconstrict. So it's going to really reduce the size of your container, your vessels in your fingers, because it needs to direct the blood to your internal organs and keep you alive. That's why you're going to start losing fingers with hypothermia, and your body's going to sacrifice and think, well, I can live without my fingers, but I can't live without my liver or parts of the digestive system. But when you drink alcohol and you get a wine jacket on, the game changes. And you think you're really warm. So when I was on my first season, we all shared a house and it was absolute mayhem. And the nights I was saying, someone got home at like 4 a.m. and was obviously had too many beers and had passed out in the snow and was there for hours. So imagine being that cold. And a local guy, a French guy, was like splashing on the door and was like, "You've got to help him." And basically, because you have this alcohol jacket, you feel really warm, and so your body doesn't respond the way it should, and vasodilation happens. You know, we get like red cheeks happens. You might feel really warm, and it's dangerous because your body is not responding, saying, "Shut off, vasodilate. You need to protect the organs that are important." And instead, that signal doesn't happen, and you've still got vasodilation happening in the fingers. They're not constricting. So you got the blood in all your extremities, but this poor bloke was in the snow, and think what's happening, like his organs weren't getting the heat they needed and the warmth they needed, and his fingers were, you know, it's crazy. And he had to actually go to hospital. So he was, really lucky that someone found him, and we it was our day off. No one woke up at like 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and he finds him like 8 hours later. But a local found him at like, I think he'd been there. He must have only been there about 2 hours or so. But still, like, and he for a long time. So I think he was like in a t-shirt or something.
It's how homeless people die often.
Yeah.
They're inside, they drink to keep warm, but they're not warm. They fall asleep and they're gone.
Yeah, it's scary. But so your heat temperature regulator is important. Obviously, that's why when you do a fitness workout, you're looking bright red because you're so warm. Vasodilation happens. All your vessels open. They're trying to get blood flow to the surface to allow that heat to escape, to keep you cool. What's that process called?
I know it.
Homeostasis. Yes. Keeping your body at that regular point. Let's go in a bit more detail here. So whole blood is made of formed elements, water, and dissolved molecules. Anyone given blood here?
Yeah.
You have? Yeah. What did they give you after?
Some sugary, weird food and drink and beer.
And beer?
Yeah.
No,
They gave
never
us like a
had
little pot of beer.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Did they rush you out?
No,
Straight away?
sit down.
Why
get
is
out
that?
of it.
Makes you go lightheaded.
Yeah.
You've given blood, so you've got less blood in
Yes,
your body.
hypovolemia. Yeah, you've got low volume. So they can't just be like, right, get up, because that's what if you get up, you feel lightheaded. And yes, sugar, so, we're keeping ourselves so you're ready to get on with the rest of your day. So when you give blood, do you know what blood group you are?
No.
Have a look on your record on NHS.
Oh,
You'll be
it's
able to
in
find
Greece,
out.
so.
It was over 10 years ago, and I can't remember, and I was only about 19, I think. So actually nearly 20 years ago.
We'll go through it in a minute, but so whole blood. When you donate blood, they don't necessarily use whole blood. So it goes into a centrifuge, which is a machine like this, and they put your blood into it. It gets shaken about and basically disturbs the levels, and it separates the plasma from the erythrocytes, and so they can take from it. If someone might only need the plasma, so then they'll just take the plasma out, and then they can use the erythrocytes for someone that needs that. If someone is like really low anemic levels, then they'll use it for different things. So every 2 seconds in the year, someone needs a blood transfusion, which is insane. And yes, they can only come from donations. So it's really important if you can give blood. I would really promote that. There's always something going on locally. It lets you find out your blood group, which if you don't know, you should know. It's really important that you do know.
My friend's just done it at Newquay Sports Centre.
They do it there quite a lot, don't they?
Yeah, I was going to sign on the you have to sign on the NHS, don't you? And then
Yeah, you just go onto the NHS website. It's got a list of dates and where they do it. You cannot give blood if you recently had a tattoo in the last 12 months, if you've been out of the country for the last 12 months.
That's why I can't give blood here. They don't want my blood because I travel like 2-3 times a year.
Yeah.
And it's in the EU countries. It's not like I'm going to like third world countries. They just don't want it. So
Yeah,
I can't
this is
give
the
blood
first
here
time.
or there.
Yeah, I can give blood now.
Yeah.
Because, especially like if I say I've been in India, they're like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, don't hang. So looking at, when they separate it, you're looking at the erythrocytes. So we know this is red blood cells. They carry CO2 and O2, and they make up about 45% of your total blood volume, hence why it's so red and rich. So carry about 1 billion molecules of oxygen. So hemoglobin is the protein molecule within there. So you've got 4 atoms per molecule. You don't need to know that, but just so you're aware, it's the hemoglobin, which is that protein molecule that is holding on to the oxygen. It's not the whole of the erythrocyte itself, it's the hemoglobin. And you've got your red blood cells are absolutely packed full of hemoglobin molecules. So looking at this is the shape of them, biconcave. Do they have a nucleus? What would you say, yes or no, Serena? Tash?
Yes.
Yeah, you're going yes? Yes or no?
I'd say yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Oh.
They sacrifice the space. So they want to carry as much oxygen as possible, and nucleus will take up that room. So they sacrifice it, but this is why you will be making thousands of new red blood cells every day, even in the time that we started this session, because they get to this old withered stage where they're all beaten up and battered, because there's not a nucleus to say, come on, we need to repair. There's no one in charge saying, let's use this to do this, let's repair this, and they don't have anyone in charge. And what happens is they've got to squeeze themselves through such tiny spaces. Imagine this is an artery or arteriole, and it used to be, what's the hole in the tube called? Things it out. Lumen.
Oh, yeah.
So the lumen used to be like this, and the red erythrocyte used to fit through there nicely. Now, this erythrocyte, this arteriole, this is all fatty substance. So now look at the diameter of the lumen. So now this erythrocyte has got to wedge itself in somehow, and all the sides of it get broken down, they get damaged. So it only lasts, I think it's for a maximum of like 4 months, a red blood cell, and then it's just replaced. So a lot of work is done in the spleen of replenishing, and they're broken down. It's like a blood storage in the spleen. So your erythrocytes get withered, and then they're just replenished. So they do not have a nucleus. Anyone know the name of red blood cell production? Yeah.
I think it's something like homeostasis, but it's the other one.
Hematopoiesis, yes. Hematopoiesis. Poiesis is to make, and hemo is blood. So this is the function. So happening in the red bone marrow, hematopoiesis. Nice. Next one up, we have got leukocytes and platelets. So this is when the blood goes into your centrifuge and it's all shaken up and separated. You can see 45% we've got the erythrocytes, and then you've got this buffy coat which is containing leukocytes and platelets. So platelets help with clotting, and I think when looking at the shape of that, it's pretty obvious how they can do that. They kind of string them together, these ones here. Whereas your leukocytes are your white blood cells. Leuco is white. So leukemia is to do with your immune system, right? Leuco is to do with your white blood cells. So let's have a look at the process of clotting. Hemostasis is clotting due to thrombocytes of the blood. You need to know these terms: erythrocytes, leukocytes, and thrombocytes. Thrombocytes are the platelets. So hemostasis is clotting due to the thrombocytes of the blood. Thromboplastin or thrombinocase. I'm going to say that this is I think these terms are in your logbook, so you'll just be expected to be aware of them. Never seen this come up in an exam. Highly doubt you're going to get tested on this at all. There will be a question about a thrombocyte and a erythrocyte, but I could bet a lot of money that this is not going to come up in your exam. I know the term anyway. So these are plasma protein aiding blood coagulation through catalyzing. I think it's about catalyzing the wound, basically. So it's cut off at the end of it. Coagulation is what?
When it's when it goes thick and others,
Yeah.
What's it called?
Yeah, blocks, and it gets really thick and gluey.
Yeah.
I went to school and with a mate when we were in primary school, and she had to have a tag on her at all times, either a necklace or a band, because she had really poor platelet count. Back then, I didn't know what it was. It just looked like a really poor blood count. Yeah, but if she ever cut herself in school or fell over, like her blood just wouldn't clot. So everyone had to know
My
about that.
grandma's like that.
Oh, really?
She's wearing a little bracelet thing.
And it's really dangerous for us if you think of like surgery. If you had to have internal surgery for anything, like it can be really dangerous. This clotting happens basically. So what happens? We'll look at the process here. So if you've got a wound, the platelets, they just come in and fill that hole. So they all clump together. They fill the hole, and they make a dam basically, and they make that very first layer of like a weak-looking scab. They just plug it. From there, we have fibrin comes in, and these are protein strands that basically lay a mesh on top of that dammed hole, and slowly the skin pulls together, and that's how you have your recovery. So if you sliced your arm open, first of all you'll have the platelets that down the hole, stop the blood seeping out, and then you've got the fibrin strands that lay on top of that. They lay this like solid mesh, and they pull the skin together. So that's why if you've got a cut on your lip, but more like a cut on your knuckle in a really awkward place, it can be really hard to heal because you've got the plug going on, you've got the platelets there, but the fibrin strands are trying to pull everything together, and then you keep opening it and stretching it. So certain parts of your body don't heal obviously as well as others. If this happened in a vessel, do you think it would heal better in an artery or better in a vein?
In a vein.
Why? Anyone else?
And it's smaller, less blood.
Less pressure. You're right, it would heal better in a vein because if you have got a hole in the artery, so we've got like a pretty big hole, so we've got the platelets come in. If this was with the fibrin strands, if this were an artery, the platelets are trying to lay down, and the force of blood is so powerful, it just knocks away any dam that's being held there, any support, whereas the vein is under much less pressure, so it can stay stronger. So think about like, if there was going to be a major flood in UK, there has been flooding, and they've built a little dam. Well, because the force of the sea or the water and the flood is too big, it just breaks down, like it just can't handle it. And that's what would be happening in an artery. In a vein, it's not so much. So that's the difference. Think of like you're trying to plug or make a dam in like whitewater rapids or a nice gentle stream. It's obvious that it's going to hold up in a gentle stream, and that's like the artery in your vein. So it's really dangerous if you have a wound in the artery. Coronary thrombosis would be what? Clotting of what area? The heart, yeah. And then haemophilia is a disorder of the fibrin protein strands. So yeah, you might be having, like my mate had a lack of platelets in her blood. So she couldn't make the dam, she couldn't make the plug. But she did have, once it was there, it took a long time with support, the fibrin strands came in and they could pull it together and she was safe. But some people have the opposite. Some people, they have the thrombocytes, they've got the platelets, but they don't have the power, they don't have the ability to lay down the fibrin strands to pull it all back together. So healing takes a really long process. Does anyone have that problem, or everyone's quite healthy here? Okay, so we've got plasma. So this is, majority of this is water. So electrolytes, gases, waste products, proteins, hormones, they're all floating about in the plasma, but the majority of plasma is water. That's not to say 90% of blood is water. Because can you remember what percentage of blood was made from erythrocytes? We said about 45% of your blood is made from erythrocytes, red blood cells. And then the other remaining percent, you've got plasma and leukocytes and platelets. But the plasma itself, the makeup of the plasma itself is 90% water. That's not to say that's 90% of blood. Any questions so far? So we've got plasma. Blood is made of 4 things. Plasma, thrombocytes. What else? No, electrolytes are floating around in plasma. So you've got plasma, leukocytes, thrombocytes, and erythrocytes. Red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, thrombocytes, and plasma. Let's say then, we need 4 structures of blood. Judith, repeat all 4.
Thrombocytes. Oh no. Leukocytes. Erythrocytes.
And
Plasma.
yes. Linda, you repeat all 4.
Plasma, erythrocytes, thrombocytes, and leukocytes.
Yes, Maxine.
Thrombocytes, leukocytes, erythrocytes, plasma. And can I just ask a quick question? It was what? 4, what did you call it? I want to write it down.
4 ingredients of blood. 4.
That 4 contents of blood.
Yeah, it's what makes up blood. Blood is made up of 4 things. What would you say? Go for it, Serena.
Plasma,
erythrocytes. You go to
Plasma, erythrocytes,
thrombocytes,
thrombocytes, and
leukocytes. Leuco is
Leuco.
white. Kim?
Plasma, erythrocytes, leukocytes, and thrombocytes.
Ada?
Plasma, erythrocytes, leukocytes, and thrombocytes.
Yes, nice one.
And Chloe, when you've got a blood clot, do you have to get it medically looked at, or does it usually go away on its own?
It depends where the location is.
My husband's uncle, he's just had to have his leg amputated.
It's a thrombosis, then, isn't it?
A blood clot in his leg.
Yeah, DVT.
And he went into the hospital and the bottom half of his leg was dead. So it had to be amputated. And then
Did no one notice the colour?
Because it
Do you
goes
not
black,
know-
isn't it?
I think he's just
The dark.
a bit rubbish at looking after himself.
Oh my
And he's
goodness.
just had to have this clot taken as well because that was a good thing.
God, that's
Happened
bad.
this week.
Oh my
He's
goodness.
lucky to kill him and travel
Yeah,
somewhere else.
he should have died.
Yeah, so that's deep vein thrombosis.
Yeah.
DVT is blood clotting. You have to be careful. If it's a contraindication if you have anyone with DVT. But yeah, it's really serious
I got DVT on a flight back from Australia.
because you've sat down for so
And I
long.
I fell asleep for too long in the same position and didn't move. And I had to wake me up because I think the person next to me realised I'd been sleeping too long and woke me up. And then I looked down at my leg and it didn't feel right. And so the person next to me was like, you need to get one of the girls to come over and look at it. And then I had to spend the last 6 hours of the flight on this other seat at the front with my leg
Elevated, yeah.
for like 6 hours.
Great way to get a personal area on the flight.
Yeah.
I had
I'm
loads
definitely
more
putting
space
that.
though. I was like, leg room.
And what was it, a DVT? Did you actually have it?
I didn't have to go to hospital because it was fine, but I think it was
If there's any
septic.
numbing,
because it didn't look right, and because it was painful, and because I'd been sat still for so long. I think they were just being cautious. They were like, you need to sit your leg up.
First class, straight away.
6 hours of the plane.
okay, let's move on. So, anyone know what an antigen is?
Yeah.
Yes, Kim.
Nice.
Antigen is a
You have been
toxin.
studying
Yeah.
blood, haven't you?
So that's why we have antibodies. So we're going to go through these antibodies. We've got B and A antibodies. So basically, I've just written here. It's a bit of extra info for you here. You're not expected to know from your exam about glycoproteins, but they detect if there's a foreign invader. So that would be bacteria. This would trigger agglutinogen to release agglutinins, an antibody that causes invaders to clump together to cause a clot. So it's easy for the leukocytes to find. So basically, you have highlighters, and they just show the leukocytes because they're your fighters, your defenders, your white blood cells, your immune system. They highlight, right, these are the guys you need to attack, and so it makes life easier for the white blood cells. So they're not having to search and kill. They just know it's there, ready to go. So with regards to blood types, that's why I was saying you need to know yours, because it's important to know what antibodies you've got. So O blood group has none. A blood group just has one antibody. B has only the B antibodies. AB are winning. How the hell AB blood group through evolution have not taken over the world? I have no idea. Because they can receive all blood. They can receive O blood, because if this blood, O blood, so all the ones on the outside, these are your antibodies. So O blood doesn't have any. They've got nothing to attack with. So they can go into AB, B, or A. They've not got anything on them that is going to trigger a fight from any of the others. And this is why you cannot accept an organ for someone that is a different blood group, because your body's going to start attacking it. For some reason, your body can start attacking itself, autoimmune, but So O blood group can go to anywhere. A blood group, what blood groups do you think can accept these?
B. Yeah, AB.
AB.
Yeah.
AB only. AB can accept it because they've got the blue dots. They've got the blue dots. So that can receive it. What blood group do you think can receive B blood?
AB.
AB again. What blood group can accept O?
All of them.
AB,
All of them.
A and B, all of them. What blood groups can O accept? No.
So what
Just
happens
O
to them then?
only.
I am O.
Oh.
So how the hell I'm still here, I don't know.
What
Mine.
happens when you do blood then?
I can only accept from my own blood group.
Oh, of course, which is more unusual, so it's hard to come by. I think my mum was that.
But it's why I need to give blood more.
Yeah.
Everyone in this
Yeah.
room, you can all accept my blood group.
Yeah.
But I probably cannot accept all of yours. And it's actually, I was on a cruise a few years ago, like with all my family, and the alarm went off, and they needed a doctor, and someone was needed operation, and they needed blood to be donated. And they were like, anyone on board that can give blood, please come now. And obviously, I was like, because I knew like everyone can have mine, and I had literally just ordered a pina colada. I know, I went to volunteer, but they were going back to shore and they had like enough in the end of the story. But it's important to know, especially if there's someone in your family that needs a blood transfusion or looking at organ donation, you need to know if you're the same blood group. And it's really dangerous why, I'm sure most of you have had kids with know your blood group, because if you are, so I don't have the same blood
I'm
group
pretty
as
sure
my
I'm
mum.
AB. I'm pretty sure I'm AB. So I remember the only time I've been told it was when I was pregnant. So I'm pretty sure I was AB.
Your
I've
name.
got vicious negative.
Yeah, we're going to come to that. So O blood group, yes, you need to know, because if you have a baby, like I'm not the same blood group as my mum, so it's really important that our blood didn't mix while she was pregnant. So it gets complicated, but basically, looking at this, ABs, universal recipient, everyone can receive them, and O blood groups are a universal donor, so everyone can receive them. Happy with those blood groups? So you've got 4 that we've covered so far. Now let's look at the rhesus side of it. So rhesus negative and rhesus positive. Now you've got 8 blood groups, right? So a minute ago we only had 4, because we're looking at the AB antibodies and A, and now we're looking at rhesus. So now you could have AB with rhesus positive or AB rhesus negative. And rhesus is just the name of another antibody, basically. So you either have the antibody rhesus or you don't. So negative types can tolerate positive, but only once. That's important to know. And I believe that's for birth. So if you're in your stomach and your mum is AB rhesus positive and you're AB rhesus negative, so you can have one mix and then that one mix. But it's just interesting to be aware of that. So if you're O, like I am, O rhesus negative, I don't have any, out of all 8 blood groups, mine is the most rare, so I can only accept mine. So I'd appreciate it if you'd all find your blood groups, so I find one of you that I can accept. It'd be great.
Might there be a
Help
question
cover
on
up.
any of this in the exam, do you think, or not?
No, I doubt it, but it's expected in your logbook, in this curriculum. You're expected to cover blood groups, and I think it's just interesting to know.
It is, yeah.
So yeah, I would find out. Let's have a quick look. Okay, any questions on this one? Blood doping. So this is where more red blood cells equals more oxygen carried to your muscles, therefore a better physical performance. So blood doping is illegal in athletics, isn't it? That's why if someone finds out, the awarding body finds out that you are blood doping, you are disqualified. I don't even, did you have a lifetime ban? Blood doping.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Now I think it's a 4-year, because they found out the Russian team doing blood doping.
Oh yeah, recently.
Yeah, so basically this can happen. Someone had it, a cyclist doing what's the French?
Oh yeah.
Tour de France.
Tour de France. Imagine halfway around, you are
Yeah.
exhausted, and your blood, when it comes to prioritising, like in the space now, we've probably created thousands of new red blood cells. But when you're cycling and your body's pushed to the limit, you prioritise where, how you process and where ATP goes to and where your function goes to and how metabolism takes over. And so it might be more important to use the energy to just literally keep your heart beating and not to replenish your red blood cells. And therefore, your red blood cells are getting all beaten up, they're not carrying as much hemoglobin. And so if you were to just get a blood transfusion on the side of the road, quick, let's just do this.
And is that what we did?
That's what someone did.
Given.
Yeah, he won it. Got disqualified.
Right.
Yeah, it was like a really big deal.
Yeah, that famous American.
God.
Sounds like Neil Armstrong.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Quite
Yeah.
bloody.
Lance Armstrong.
Yeah, got done for blood taking.
Doing that
So
at Sherwood.
yeah, but could you? Is he?
Yeah, well, he was, and then I think they broke up because of that.
Yeah, because he was a friend. Yeah, she was dating. He was French. Wasn't he French?
Outrageous,
Oh,
though,
this is
isn't
another guy. isn't
That
it?
you could
He
even,
was
that people would
French.
even think
about
about that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that it.
Just at the side of like a race as well, like
And
before a
blood,
race or something, but like at the side.
blood
of
only lasts for like a certain amount of time. It has to be obviously kept cool. So if it's not used, it's wasted in a certain amount of time. So for blood doping to even happen, to find someone that's your own blood group, someone
Really?
generally it's done yourself. So whilst I'm really healthy, I'd get myself in like peak performance. I'd take a pint of blood out. This could be like 2 days before my race. Store it. You've got. They have like a huge doctor team. Store it. Keep it there. But
It's cheating.
it is cheating massively.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions with regards to cardiovascular system? What we've covered so far? No.
I've got loads, but I think
this one about blood. I feel just have
Oh
It's
no!
sick when they
Talk about blood.
about blood.
Oh, we're done now.
Oh,
Don't worry.
Oh.
I don't know why. I just like every time we talk about blood.
we had
We're done now.